This Indianapolis 500 2024 odds and picks edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbet.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month and start making smarter bets today. We're also brought to you by KUTT. KUTT is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and available in 40 states. Head to KUTT.com, that's KUTT.com. Use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. And we're also brought to you by the SGPN merch store. 15% off of everything when you use the promo code PLAYOFFS.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you asked me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Let's talk racing things. It is, of course, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. See, here's the thing about this show. And you've been with us for 328 episodes. You guys know the drill by now. If it's got, 327, this is 328, but if it's got four wheels and they race them around some sort of track, we will always try to give you the odds and our picks on it. So, as we always have in the past, we're going to give you some IndyCar odds and IndyCar picks, and there's no bigger race in the sport, I guess, if you really want to go.
Might not be a bigger race in motorsports, Rod.
That's what I'm saying.
I know we're NASCAR guys, but this might be the biggest one. I
know sometimes you have to step back from where your kids are to see that somebody's better than them. But yes, the Indy 500 is one of the biggest races, the biggest spectacles in motorsports. And so there are odds already, and we are a good months out from the race itself, but there are odds. And so like we did with the Daytona 500 a couple months ago, we speculated on who we thought would take home the checkered flag. Well, in this case, we're going to speculate on who's drinking the milk at the end of the race. So it is the Indy 500, and we will talk about some of our favorites in the odds, right, Cody?
I would love to break down the IndyCar race this weekend, give you out odds and picks, but Rod, there isn't one. So what else are we going to talk about in January? Sure, it's 5 months away, but it's never too early to speculate. It's never too early to start looking. Hey, look, this is your opportunity, as we go through these odds on a longer shot. If they end up having a good start to the season, the number could come down. You get a lot of opportunities to buy good value. If you go back and you look, the odds for the Vegas Grand Prix for F1 were available last December, even though that race was not until November. You could have bet Max Verstappen. I have to go back and look, but I believe he was plus money at the time to bet to win that race. So yeah, you had to, as a long future, of course, right? But by the time you get to the race, he's minus 350, something like that to win the race. So sometimes you can find a little bit of value way ahead of time. And again, no racing this weekend going on. So what else are we going to talk about, right? And we're going to sit here and talk IndyCar. So I can't really think of anything else I'd rather be doing.
Indeed. I love it as well. I will say, look, as we talk about the way too early, this is always this is way too early. You shouldn't even be thinking about it. And Nick Fortune in the chat, let's go racing. It's currently in Iowa where it's snowing. Yeah, Cody, I was talking about you guys' squalls out there.
Yes, we were in a snow squall. We got the cell phone alert from the National Weather Service and everything. It was a lot of fun, 50-mile-an-hour blizzard conditions basically for a little bit here earlier. So Yeah, we've been having a blast in the Midwest here, Nick.
So when we talk about, like I said, the way too early odds and the way too early to be talking about it, last year when you were talking about January into May, right, where last year you go back in a whole full calendar year, Alex Palou was at 10-1 to win this race. Just the race week itself, he dropped down to plus 550. Now, we all know that Josef Newgarden ended up winning that race, which is sort of contrary to what we're talking about as far as way too early, because Josef Newgarden to win this in January of last year was plus 850. He actually, they gave him plus 14-1 or 14-1 odds just the week before the race to win that race. So it's kind of like counterproductive, but Palou had that huge shift in odds, and he was the odds-on favorite at that point. But earlier in the year, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. And it's because of the great season. I mean, obviously, look at how good his season was. He ends up running away Max Verstappen style almost with the title, wrapping it up before we even got to the end of the season. So, yeah, it's kind of, if there's somebody that's farther down in the odds, and we'll get to the odds here in a minute, and Palou is the favorite at plus 500. Maybe you wait and you don't bet him now just because the number's so low, and you get closer and he's bigger. But maybe you go down and maybe you feel like it's Marcus Ericsson's season and he's got longer odds and he's going to have a great season leading up to it. His number's going to be smaller. Now's your chance to jump in and get it, or whatever the case may be, whichever driver it is. I think there's always good value in that. And hey, if you think Palou does what Palou did last year, what Max Verstappen's been doing in F1, maybe you do want to get it at 5-1 now because it might not be there later.
Yeah, and again, it's just a matter of like going through and looking at who we think is going to perform and who we think is going to be a good bet to just jump on now, a la Alex Palou. Like you said, I mean, this would have been a great opportunity for you to jump in at 10-1 instead of losing all that momentum. Now, of course, if you were betting Josef Newgarden, which I think we did give out, right? Didn't we give out Newgarden to win that race?
I believe we had Newgarden.
We had him somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think we definitely did because. Yeah, he's the Oval King. He hadn't won the 500 before, but he did get it done finally. Took that one lap dash to the checkered after the late caution flag, but hey, it worked.
Hey, how many laps do you have to lead to win the race?
Only one, Rob.
That's right. You only have to lead.
You don't even have to lead the whole lap.
No, you could just jump out ahead and be good to go for 3/4 of it or even the last second of it. So it really doesn't matter. But yeah, we'll definitely take a look at the odds for the Indianapolis 500, which is exactly why we are here today. But before we do, listen, I want to tell you guys a little bit about DraftKings because we definitely love us some DraftKings. They have been giving us great odds all season long on not just NASCAR, but of course, IndyCar and football. I mean, that's what's going on right now, right? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer that makes the playoffs more electrifying. New customers, you can bet $5 on any game to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. The NFL playoffs are happening this weekend. I, for one, am excited to be able to watch my 49ers take on the Green Bay Packers. I'm a little bit scared, but what can you do? Let's take a look at what you got to pick here from the NFL playoffs. You got the Houston Texans 9.5-point underdogs to the Baltimore Ravens. The Packers still holding firm at 9.5-point underdogs to the Niners. Tampa Bay 6.5-point underdogs to the Lions, and the Chiefs 2.5-point underdogs to the Bills. All of that going down right now on DraftKings. How you get in on it is to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code SGP. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-78-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right. I
don't know who gave Nick my number. Oh, wait, I did, but it was too late. I looked at my phone before I saw your message.
Nick says, whatever you do, don't look at your phone. So apparently something's going on over there for between Nick and Cody already.
He's
So
just sending rather hilarious things. So I was laughing the entire break. Thanks, Nick.
all right. So let's get down to business and start taking a look at some of these odds. A couple of favorites jump out already as you start looking down the board. You got 5-1 for Alex Palou, 5.5-1 for Pato O'Ward. Obviously, we just got done talking about Alex Palou and this season that he had. Just a great 5 wins, 10 podiums, 2 poles. I mean, he was on fire last season and definitely was the guy to beat week in and week out. And you know, not very many people had an opportunity to really do that against him. Josef Newgarden was the exception in that instance. But if you're going to pick a race favorite this early in the season, I suppose the dude that ran away with it all last year is the one to pick. Yeah.
Should he really be the favorite though? I just don't know. Like he's not won it the last couple. You know, it's not like he's just absolutely dominated and won it the last couple of years. He's been in the mix. Yes, I know. I mean, he finished 4th last year. But you know, 22 he was in 9th place. 21 he did have the 2nd place finish. He was real right behind Elio for the end of that race. But I get it because you're coming off of the season he had and the dominance he had, right? But even on the ovals, it's not like he was to the level of a Josef Newgarden. Newgarden just won this race last year, and you know, I mean, he swept at Iowa. He won most of the oval races last year, and we'll talk about him in a minute when we get to his odds, obviously. But it's interesting to me that Palou is the favorite. Maybe a little bit of Max Verstappen, symptoms or whatever, I guess, where it's like, okay, he kind of dominated a lot of IndyCar last year, so I guess he just gets thrown on there as the default favorite. One thing I did want to note too, there's no oval races before the Indy 500 this year. Texas in the past has previously been an oval, and none of these ovals are really comparable to what Indy is anyways, but it is nice to get a feel for what oval programs look like. Not going to get that this year with Texas being off the schedule. The schedule is very second half loaded with ovals. You got Worldwide Technologies, the double at Iowa, the double at the Milwaukee Mile later on in the season, but no Texas early in the season. So we're not really going to get that opportunity to look at ovals before the Indy 500, which sucks from a betting aspect because I would like to see a race in the ovals just to kind of get an opinion. But hard to hate on Palou. Obviously, he is great, right? He had an amazing season last season, and but I don't know. Should he be the favorite? Is he worth betting at 5-1 right now? I don't think so.
Well, and here's the thing. So as you look at what his body of work was on the ovals last year, and I get that not all ovals are the same, especially in Indy, but NASCAR, obviously there's so many different configurations and they do it every week. So even with Indy, I feel like it doesn't matter if the oval is a little bit different. It's all oval to them. You know what I'm saying? Like to them, they're like, am I taking a right turn at any point? No. Yeah. Okay. It's an oval.
And I think that's where you can, even places from going to Texas to an Iowa. Yeah. They're obviously not, in NASCAR, we wouldn't compare those tracks. But in IndyCar, it's different because it's just the oval package. It's what they're doing on the ovals. Yeah, I get it. They're different size tracks, different styles, but much more seems to translate oval to oval. And it's that way across all of IndyCar, right? The road courses seems to translate more to the road courses. The street races seem to translate more to the other street races, even though the circuits aren't exactly the same, obviously. Enough of the characteristics, enough of the setups are the same and everything that it does seem to translate across that way. So, unfortunate to not have an oval beforehand, but not the end of the world, of course.
Well, and again, so Alex Palou without a win at all in the oval tracks. In fact, he was 3rd place in Texas early in the season. He was 8th place at Iowa in that first part of it. And then he was 3rd place. Remember, and that 3rd place was a very impressive 3rd place because he did start 12th and you almost kind of counted him out of that second race in Iowa, but he managed to crawl back in for a 3rd place finish, which was outperforming what he'd done pretty much all season long and even all weekend long at that point. 7th place at Worldwide Technology. So, again, he was barely inside the top 5 in some cases and not close to really winning the rest of the time. It was Newgarden and Dixon that got the wins at the Oval. So I'm with you, Cody. I don't believe he should be the favorite on this, and I definitely don't want to take him at this. I want to wait and see if exactly what happens last season, right? Or with Josef Newgarden kind of happens to Palou this season, where maybe it doesn't look like he's going to come out with a good season in the beginning, and then you can maybe jump on a 14-1 where Newgarden, like I said, was at 8.5-1 in the early part of the year, whereas later on he was 14-1. So I'd rather kind of wait and see if that happens to Palou rather than jump on him now at a 500.
Yeah, completely agreed.
So all right, so then the next driver on that list is Pato O'Ward. Pato O'Ward was runner-up in Texas earlier in the season. He ended up finishing third at that first Iowa race, and then he had a pretty bad day. On that Sunday. He ended up finishing 10th after starting 11th. That was a really bad run for him as well. He was second at Worldwide Technology, so not bad on the ovals for Pato O'Ward.
And he had a good day in that second Iowa race, but ran into trouble late, and that's what cost him. Because I want to say he was running top 3 in that second race for a majority of it, and then a late issue. I think, man, I'm trying to think back. I was there, so I should remember it a lot. But, it's a lot of races we got jumbled in together. But I'm pretty sure he was kind of giving Newgarden a little bit of a run, and then I think there was a late deal. I don't remember if it was pit strategy or ill-timed caution or something that kind of sent him back a little bit. But I think he was more competitive than the result really shows.
Yeah, and so also he did struggle in the Indy 500. He did start 5th, ended up crashing after 30. What was it? 30.
Well, yeah, his was the wheel that went into the parking lot, wasn't it? So
yeah,
that was later in the race. But again, you get caught up in a wreck. But the previous 2 seasons, top 4 finish in each of them. He was second in 22, 4th in 21. So he's got the pedigree of getting the solid results here that I think even more so than a Palou kind of puts him more rightfully at these top odds. The Palou thing, again, I think it's just the recency bias of what he did to IndyCar last year, all the wins he had, how good he looked. I don't think it's taking into account his previous Indy 500s as much. He's got the second place finish, obviously, that for something. But I think O'Ward definitely a guy that seems to be in the mix for the Indy 500 more years than he's not.
And he did lead 39 laps last year in the 500 as well. So in the front, he was a front runner for most of that day. But at plus 550, is this a number you're touching now, or are you going to wait?
This early? It's hard to imagine that number really drops a ton more, right? Like, I don't know what you would have to do. I think a guy like Palou, you could see it drop. If he comes out, wins the first 2 or 3 races, and they freak out because he's just dominating, then I could see his number dropping. But O'Ward, I don't know that the number is going to dip much more than that. So this is probably one you could wait on.
I agree with you on that as well. All right, we'll get to a few more of the drivers, but first, has there ever been a bet that you wanted to make, but 1, the books don't give it to you, or 2, it's really just with your buddy sitting next to you and all you want to do is shut him up because you just want to win that money? Well, now you're going to have the perfect opportunity to do so with KUTT. KUTT is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and available in 40 states. Peer-to-peer social betting is a new, better way to bet. Bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, get this, politics, pop culture, and anything else that you could even come up with, as long as it's got a verifiable outcome. Tons of social features that give it the feel of a betting social network. Plus, KUTT offers the lowest VIG and fully customizable odds. Like I said, create your own bets. How much fun is that? You don't see a prop that you like on a book, you can make it yourself and bet on your buddies with it. Set your own odds for it and everything. Are you scared that you'll never see the money again? Don't be. KUTT handles the payment side of things, so you never have to chase anyone down for money. Plus, there's social features like group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, so much more. Rewards, too. You get cash back every single time you bet against your friends and other users. Reminder, KUTT is the peer-to-peer social betting platform that's U.S.-based and legal in 40 states. Head to KUTT.com. That's KUTT.com. Use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. What do you know about Underdog? I know you know a ton about Underdog, especially if you listen to this show. You know that Underdog is the way to play alongside your favorite fantasy players all season long, whether it's NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball, college football. All you got to do, pick higher or lower on your favorite fantasy players' stats and cash in. Watch along, especially this weekend. So much drama and so much action going on in the NFL playoffs. Make your picks. Maybe make a little cash. What do you mean maybe? Of course, make a little cash. You guys are smart. Over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with the promo code SGPN, Underdog's going to double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code SGPN. So we talked about Josef Newgarden's dominance on the paved, I suppose is what we'll put the P, right? The ovals for us, paved for them, tracks. But the only other guy to score a victory in that was Scott Dixon. So, rightfully so, he finds himself third on the list at 7-1 to win the Indianapolis 500. I mean, look, when we talk about what he did at the Indy 500, Scott Dixon started sixth, finished sixth. I feel like that kind of told the story of his day. He didn't lead any laps. He just sort of ran around and found himself exactly where he started. So, I mean, 7-1 for Scott Dixon to win this race. I don't know. He was the only other person to win an oval last season. So it kind of makes you stop and think for a second. Yeah.
Won the oval last season. Didn't get the result in 2022, Rod. But if you remember, he led 95 laps early in that race. Was absolutely running away, kicking everyone's ass. And then the speed limiter got him on pit road. Big mistake, loses the race. He's still out to get that revenge for that. He's still out to get that. I believe he's got one Indy 500 win in the past, but he's looking for one more. He proved at the end of last season, he still got it, right? He won a couple of races late in the season there. I believe he ended up winning the season finale as well. Gave Palou as much of a run as anyone was going to give for the championship. Been around a long time, but he can still get it done. 7-1, this is the first guy on the list where I'm starting to think, all right, this is one I would take. I don't know that his odds are going to get much better. I could see a scenario where his odds get worse, though. If he starts the season out hot like he finished last year, they're going to look back. They're going to think, led a ton of laps before. He's won this race before. His number could drop. So I don't mind grabbing Dixon at 7-1 if you want an early ticket on one of these favorites, because I think that he's a guy that I'm probably going to be on, and you never know. This could be the best number you're going to see for him. 7-1 is not a bad number at all for a guy who's done it before, a guy who's been close recently, and the only other guy who won an oval last year besides Josef Newgarden.
3 front row starts in 4 races, Indianapolis 500 races. 2 of those were poles. Of course, last season he started 6th, like I said, ended up 6th, but before that, first, second. For him, another couple polls in 2015 and 2017. Like you said, in 2008, he won that race and started from the pole as well. I mean, you know, he's got 5 podiums, 21 starts. That dude's been around the Indy circuit for a very, very long time. 2003 was his very first start. He had 20 years last year. Was how long?
I remember 11-year-old Cody watching him at some of these races.
That's insane. I
crazy.
Yeah.
He's been around a long time, but man, he's still, you know, we talk about it with these guys that Father Time catches up eventually, but hasn't caught up to Scott Dixon just yet. So something about that Aussie blood, I guess, that just keeps, or Kiwi blood, I guess I should say, but keeps him going.
5th place at Texas. We talked about what he did in Indianapolis. That first Iowa race that he was in, he finished in 6th place after starting 4th. The second one, he finished 6th after starting 9th. And then at Worldwide Technology, he had a win. Like I said,
he wins or finishes 6th on these ovals is what we've learned.
So
if you can get an exact 6th place finish bet, hey Books, I know that sometimes you listen to us. Let's get that exact 6th place finish bet in there.
Indeed. F1 Bet Tipster saying, hello, what's up? Thanks for joining us.
What's going on, buddy? Thanks for joining us. I know he was sad he missed the live F1 was that yesterday? God,
yesterday,
I don't remember.
yeah.
I think
Well, we didn't give much warning.
We didn't, but we'll be live future in the future. So make sure you click that bell. We're going to keep doing F1 live on this channel. So bell, and you'll get the notifications.
All right, so let's talk about the next name on this list, and that's Alexander Rossi. Alexander Rossi last year was 5th place in the Indianapolis 500. But, I mean, outside of that, on these ovals, he was not necessarily anywhere kind of near. I mean, Alexander Rossi in Texas ended up in, and, I got to scroll, 23rd after starting in 3rd place. He was the last car running in that race. So not a good day for Alexander Rossi. 10th place after starting 20th. I mean, a really good run in that first Iowa race to get up to 10th place, but he put himself in trouble. And then 15th in the second Iowa race after starting 18th. And then at Worldwide Technology, he actually did have a good solid 4th place finish after a 7th place start. So, but still, I don't know that this is an instance where the odds sort of justify where he was at. And in fact, I want to see where he was at in January of last year for this. He was at 20-1 last year to win the Indianapolis 500 in January. And then later on, as the season progressed, he was at 12-1. So again, the odds shifted again, kind of giving you shorter odds for him. But I mean, it's crazy to think that right now, this early on, he's 8.5-1, and there's really nothing to back that up.
Yeah, I don't. Man, he's won it before, right? He has won it in 2016. So you've got the previous winner of it. But otherwise, I mean, last year you went over his oval results. Not really that great. 5th place the last couple of years, 29th place before that. I just don't know that you're really seeing what you want at this number. A guy that was 20-1 at this time last year. Now he's only plus 850. We're this next group of fellas I'm going to start getting real excited for. So where he's kind of sitting compared to some of these other people, just not a guy I'm super interested in getting in on.
Dos Flacos in the chat again. What's up? Cheers. Cheers. Dos
Cheers.
Flacos.
Rod doesn't have his fancy drink today. So
no green drink today. I'm sorry, guys. I am not Marvin the Martian.
See,
today.
you didn't bring a drink last night that was fancy, and we ended up with a snow squall today here in Nebraska. So it's all your fault, Rod.
It is my fault. So I'm sorry for your weather tomorrow. That's just the way it is.
It's gonna be really cold. Weird how that works. Huh?
I'm gonna we'll put a bow on Rossi because we just don't want to touch this number. 9th place in the final standings, only one podium. He only led 12 laps all season long. I think it is too much to ask for him to come out and actually win the Indy 500 this year. So yeah, definitely stay away from that.
Yeah, and again, a guy that could do it, sure, but at this number, just it doesn't make you want to do it.
No, but could I interest you, Cody, in a Josef Newgarden at 9-1? If I can't get you into a Alexander Rossi at 8.5-1, can I interest you,
what
sir?
About this beautiful.
What
Josef
about this lovely Josef Newgarden here, who is at 9-1 to win the Indianapolis 500 as a repeat performer?
Yeah, I mean, did it last year, right? Broke the Penske curse, finally getting Penske back into victory lane in his series at his track. So good to see. And I mean, king of the ovals, king of the corn, right? I was in Iowa, saw him do the sweep there. He dominated the ovals, won all of them other than the one Scott Dixon got was it Worldwide Technologies, I think, later in the season. So yeah, I mean, really hard to count him out. And again, why is he 9-1? I don't fully understand why he's the returning winner. He's dominated the ovals. He's struggled in the previous years at this race. I understand that, but if Penske's finally broken the curse, if they've figured something out, you look at how well he runs on ovals, coming off of winning it last year. Why is he at 9-1? It doesn't necessarily add up. This is another one where I really think that Josef Newgarden's number could move a lot between now and then because he comes out and starts the season off hot. Then we're going into that race and everybody's thinking, well, look what he's did at ovals last year. Look at him winning this race last year. I think that number could drop. So I think 9-1 would be a good number to get in on Josef Newgarden. And again, he's the king of ovals in IndyCar right now as it stands. I mean, he's been dominating ovals for years, and that was the one that he couldn't get, and he couldn't get off his back. And now he has. Maybe he pulls the double and repeats.
Well, and I know we talked about the fact that his odds kind of lengthened last year as opposed to to shorten up, but I don't think that's the case this year. I just like you, I'm a little confused as to why he's 9-1 right now, given the fact that he did win almost every single oval and including the Indianapolis 500. So we always talk about returning winners on race winners and stuff, and how Kyle Larson probably always ends up being the favorite everywhere to go. But you figure on ovals all season long, Josef Newgarden's got to be that guy. I mean, unless of course they're just saying, we don't know. And
the one other thing, right? It's been since 01-02 when Elio went back to back. That's the last time we had a back to back. So if you do believe in, nobody wins this back to back, and it hasn't happened in a long time. That's 22 years ago since Elio did it. I guess you could throw that in there, but I don't feel like you can weigh that in too much, because you could have said going into last year, Penske doesn't win it either because they hadn't in quite some time, and they did as well. I think that there is that little bit of, historic piece to it of nobody does it or hasn't happened in such a long time. But if anybody's going to do it, why not the guy who's the best at the ovals, right? So I think that, again, and to your point, I don't think his number's going down this year like it did last year based on him winning it last year mostly, because as we get closer, people, the general public is going to be like, who won last year? Oh, that guy did. Oh, he's 9-1. Okay, there you go. And they're going to bet him, right? But I do think it is a good bet earlier on, because I think that number is going to drop as we get closer.
Yeah, I agree. And really, if you're looking at the odds boards here, and then you look at the standings boards from the end of last season, it kind of goes in order with the exception of McLaughlin, who we'll talk about in a second. But, it goes Palou, Ward, Dixon, and then Newgarden. Rossi's sort of an outlier too in that as well. But for the most part, they kind of go straight down that list. So it's I don't know if that's what they were looking at or what. I don't know. But I like I said, take advantage of this 9-1 now. We're gonna clip this, and we're going to go back to it when we get closer to the Indy 500 to see where his odds are at.
I like it.
Yeah, because again, I don't think you're going to get the same actual numbers that you're going to get when you get close to May. So
speaking of the curse of back to back, next on the list.
Oh, well, next on the list, yes. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to tell you guys, I'm always excited to tell you about Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets, a revolutionary parlay optimizer tool. You're going to get hit rates broken down by leg as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark. Join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. If you have not already done so, please, and I say please with all of the just desperation that I can, get over to the merch store right now. Go buy yourself some Racing Gambling Podcast hoodies. You know what? I don't care. Just load up your cart, one of everything. You know why? Because we are in a heated battle with all the other shows on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, all of them, MLB, NHL, football, I don't know, even that big main show, whatever it is. We're in a lockdown, drag out battle with them to sell the most merch. And listen, to sweeten the pot, I'm going to give you a code. It's playoffs. If you use the promo code playoffs, you're going to get 15% off of everything you buy, which, let's face it, should be everything in the store all month long. All the credit goes to us. And when we win, we will we'll just throw ourselves a nice little party, and we'll throw you a nice little party as well. Because you will have supported our little store and done us very good. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be the Racing Gambling Podcast stuff. It could be anything in the store, but just make sure that the bosses know that you are proud NASCAR Gambling Podcast supporters, and go buy that merch. You get 15% off if you use the code playoffs. But you're going to love yourself for it, because you're going to have a nice coffee mug, a hat, a hoodie. I don't care. Whatever it is you buy, you'll be happy with it. Do it and think of us. That was something else. I do enjoy.
We're back to the awkward Rod ad reads at the end of these shows that were so great last year, and I love them.
I never can figure out how to get out of it without saying.
What was it last year when you were trying to get? I think we were trying to get like reviews and stuff, and you're like, just please say nice things about us.
I love you. Just do it, please. It's all I can do to like not gush over you guys. Just do it. But listen, we wouldn't mind reviews. So go ahead if you want to.
Yeah. Hey, help us out going into the season. We'd appreciate it.
We'll love you. All right. Yes. Speaking of the curse of back-to-back, the next guy on the list is Marcus Ericsson at 10-1. I mean, you heard his name before. We read it off a couple of times over. Marcus Ericsson finishing 8th in the Texas Motor Speedway race. Marcus Ericsson, runner-up in that Indianapolis 500 last year.
Which you can make the argument, Rod, that the curse is what got him because the late caution flag. There's no way they can go back green, right? There's not enough time. They're going to do the green and the white at the same time, and he loses it on the last lap to break, not being able to go back to back. Oh my goodness, maybe the curse is a real thing.
Hey, maybe it is, but I will say that Marcus Ericsson did give it all he could on that one. And again, he does have one win in only 5 starts in that, and he was the runner-up, led 20 laps last season. So, I can see where 10-1 is a good solid price for a guy like Marcus Ericsson. Because like I said, it's just something that you feel. He finished 4th in that first Iowa race, turnaround and had a kind of a rough go of it. Started 10th, but finished 9th in the Sunday race. And then had a kind of really bad day at Worldwide Technology, but still turned it into a 10th place finish. So, yeah, I mean, listen, at 10-1, I feel like there's a little speculation to be had there because you're right. He is a past winner, and to do it once in only 5. So there's guys, this is like the Daytona 500, right? There's guys that have been trying for years to win this race and haven't done it. And a guy like Marcus Ericsson comes in his 4th season and wins it. So, can he do it again is the question. And can he hang on to beat a guy like Josef Newgarden? I like it 10-1. I really like that.
Yeah. And F1 bet tipster tossing out, he got beat by a rookie, Charles Leclerc in 2018 in F1 too. But yeah, I mean, 5 starts, and in his last 2, he's got a 1st and a 2nd place, Rod. Like, you can't ask too much more from a guy than that. That's pretty solid. And really, if it wasn't for I don't think we'd ever seen before the 1-lap shootout to end the Indy 500. If it wasn't for that, he was the back-to-back champion of the Indy 500. We'd be talking about him being, plus 500 probably at the top of this board, having won it twice in a row. So at 10-1, again, I don't want to be on all these guys, but like this group right here of these 4 or 5 drivers we're talking about, this is like the heart of pick 1 or 2 of these guys and go bet them now because I love this. Another one where, it could depend how his season starts, but you expect it to be somewhat decent. And 10-1 for a guy that's he's got an average finish of 1.5 over the last 2 seasons. It's really hard to argue with that. So I think he's sitting at a good value at 10-1 as well.
So last January, Marcus Ericsson was 10-1, kind of familiar territory there. And then come May, come race weekend, he was at 12-1. So, I don't think it's going to be that way again this year. I honestly don't think that the odds are going to open.
That was as the repeat or like as the defending winner too, which
That's
is
what I'm saying.
Interesting.
It is very interesting how they don't necessarily value that you've won this race before the year before. So
right. The previous year. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on the Marcus Ericsson 10-1. That's something you got to probably, I mean, listen, if you're betting on the Indy 500 this early, you're probably treating it exactly like a first touchdown bet in the NFL. Take a unit, split it up, and throw it, quarter unit at all of these if you really want to do it, because that's kind of the best way to go about it. Unless you really, really feel like you're into, we're not here to tell you how to bet. We're just trying to lean you in a direction.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on then to Scott McLaughlin, who is sitting there at 12-1. Scott McLaughlin finished the season in 3rd place. He had 4 podiums, 1 win on the year, led 117 laps. So kind of, the fellow Kiwi, as it were, to Scott Dixon. But yeah, here's the thing about him. I don't know. 12-1. I mean, look, he finished 6th at Texas, right? And then he went out and finished 14th at the Indy 500. And then in Iowa, he had a not very good day at all, in fact. Oh, no, he finished second. I'm sorry. I was scrolling in the wrong direction. He had a runner-up finish at Iowa the second day, and then a fifth-place finish after starting second. So he's up around the front, right, in most of these, but not necessarily a threat to win these races.
Yeah, I mean, well, when your teammate's so damn good at it, it makes it a little harder. But it's been a rough go for him in his 3 starts in the Indy 500, Rod. He hasn't finished better than 14th in 3 starts. How can you just justify betting a guy 12-1 when he's not finished inside the top 5? He's not even finished inside the top 10 in any of his Indy 500 starts. And again, Penske's oval program seems to be very good. Obviously, they won all but one oval race last season, and at Iowa they had the podium sweep in one of the races, and they finished well in both of them. But man, it's just having his history here speaks for itself. A 20th place finish, a 14th place finish, a 29th place finish. That's just not getting it done. I think at 12-1, the number's just too short for a guy that hasn't really shown up at the end of these Indy 500s for even a decent result. Hard to justify betting someone at that number when they've not even been in the mix to try and win it at any point yet.
And it's a little different too for Indy and for these open wheel, where if you say to me, like in NASCAR, he's running in the top 5, which means he probably has a shot to win just about every single week. A lot of times in these Indy, like even the top 5, they're spaced out. And if I say you have a top 5 finish, sometimes that doesn't tell the story of where he actually finishes on the track versus, he finished 5th place, but 5th place was like way the hell back there. Right. So it's a little different than NASCAR.
Yeah. And then, so how far back is 14th place, right? That's a long ways.
Yeah, a very long way sometimes. So yeah, definitely not really looking at Scott McLaughlin. How about Will Power? Let's talk about him for a second. He's at 14-1. Will Power finished the season in 7th. They're lumping all these New Zealanders all together, aren't they?
And all the Penske. You got all the Penske guys right here.
Yeah. So again, Will Power, 4 podiums, 2 poles. Look at what he did at Texas. Will Power ended up finishing in 16th after an 8th place start. Will Power in the Indy 500 finished 23rd after a 12th place start, and then turned around and had a 5th place finish in the first Iowa race after starting on the pole in that one. So had some speed there, started on the pole again the next day, finished 2nd in the Iowa race, and then turned around for a 9th place finish at Worldwide Technologies. I mean, 14-1 seems like a very, very tempting number, but not necessarily. I don't think I'm going to bite on that one.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that you want to believe can still get it done, right? And he's won the Indy 500 previously. But in 2018, when he also won the championship, he won it. But I don't know. Again, looking at his past 3 results here, 15th, 23rd, 30th, like not good results at all. But then you have races like Iowa where he starts on the pole, where he competes with Newgarden throughout the day. Like in those Iowa races, he was the other car that really had a chance, and he led some laps and he looked good, and then kind of fell off at the end. Again, he's getting towards the latter parts of his career. He's 42 years old, so he's kind of getting near where the race car drivers tend to fall off a little bit. But man, he seems like a guy who could pop up and win one of these. Obviously, we know older guys can do it, right? Elio's still been doing it not very long ago, of course. But yeah, again, I like him, in 14-1, I think is a decent number. But having Newgarden only, a few spots ahead of him, having Ericsson only a few spots ahead of him, their numbers are just so much more attractive, and it feels so much more attainable for them. Not that Will can't do it, because I think he's still got it in him, and it would be great to see him get one more, But the results haven't necessarily been there lately. He's starting to lose it a little bit, I think. So at only 14-1, I don't know that he's worth betting. And maybe he starts the season a little bit slower, right? And that number drops. You get him around 20-1, then maybe you start to look a little more, because maybe he jumps up for that oval race, and Penske's on it with the oval program again, and on it in the Indy 500 again, and he actually gets it done at a better number. But 14-1 right now, I'm not going to bite.
Yeah, last January, Power was 10-1, and that number jumped up to 16-1 on race days. I guess if you really wanted to wait, that would probably be the way to go. And for the record, everybody, yes, Will Power is Australian. He is not a New Zealander. I'm sorry, but
same difference, Rod. Right? They're all from the same place. No.
that's like when everybody's like America. They're like, oh, you guys are all from LA, and you say I'm from California. Like, oh, you're from LA? No, you son of a bitch. I am from Northern California. I am not from LA. But all of the flags, when they're that tiny, look the same. So I apologize to Will Power. You are Australian. I will give you your due. So I don't want anybody going, Rod doesn't know the difference between Australia and New Zealand. Sorry.
I'm glad that you cleared that up and got that all straightened out.
Dude who talks for a living, not cares. Anyways, I do care. I love you guys.
As we determined during that last ad, he loves.
Didn't we just say yeah? We already
just have this conversation.
We did, in fact. All right, let's continue to have this conversation. I'm gonna lump the next two together because I don't even think we need to have the conversation for Felix Rosenqvist and David Malukas for they're both 16-1. I mean, I know they're good drivers in and of their own right. And we had some good tickets on Rosenqvist as a top 5, top 3 driver here and there, but I'm just not feeling it even at 16-1. Look at what Rosenqvist did last year in the Indy 500. He finished 27th after a third place start. He crashed out of that. He did lead 33 laps. And listen, I think he was one that I was on, in fact, in that Indy 500. But again, we just didn't really see, I think, the winning. There's a difference between being a front runner and being a winner, right? On these ovals, especially. And there's kind of a huge difference when it comes to that. And I don't see that out of Rosenqvist. So I don't know. At 16-1, I'm not going to touch him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the 4th place finish in 22, right? And he led some laps last year, so a case can be made. But for where we're kind of sitting at with these guys, this is kind of that range of you just wanted to get in on some 9-10-1 guys. The 16 range guys just aren't quite good enough to make you want to grab them where you could dip a little farther and make a case for some guys with longer odds. So, yeah, I think that you kind of got to just skip over these two guys and not really give them a ton of consideration, at least at this point. Again, as we get closer to the race, you're digging into it more. You're seeing how their seasons are going. Maybe it's a different story, but I think where we're sitting right now in January, not ready to pull the trigger on these guys.
No, I'm certainly not either. And, again, it's not as if they're not talented. And that's the thing about it. Like, these guys are talented drivers, but just not ones that I think can win this race right now. Rosenqvist finished 12th in the standings with only 2 podiums and 1 pole, led only 88 laps through the entire season. David finished 17th in the standings, had 1 podium finish, only led 4 laps all season. So these are guys that not necessarily thinking are going to win the Indianapolis 500.
And the one thing you can say for Malukas, right, is he is switching teams. So he is going from Dale Coyne, which is a lower team, and he's going over to Arrow McLaren. So he's going to be in a better ride, yes. But have you seen enough from him in those? I mean, 29th and 23, was he 14th or no, 16th and 22? Like, he's not been super overly impressive, and in lesser equipment, yes, I get it, in his first couple of seasons here, but still probably not a big enough number. If you're going to take one of these guys, why wouldn't it be Felix, who's been in the McLaren a little longer and has the 4th place finish? And Malukas, I think, has a bright future, and we'll see. Maybe as we get closer, he's building up some momentum, but not ready to pull the trigger on him to do this just yet, at this number at least.
Yeah. Same, I think, case can be made for Kyle Kirkwood. He's sitting at 18-1. Kyle Kirkwood's only taken the track at Indianapolis for the 500 twice, crashed out of last year after a 15th place start, finished 17th in the 2022 season after starting 28th. So, I mean, again, not necessarily somebody I'm necessarily all that high on for this race in particular as well. He finished 27th in Texas earlier in the season, ended up finishing in 7th place after 17th place in the first Iowa. So a good race for him there, but 11th in the second Iowa race. And then at Worldwide Technology later on in that season, he finished 15th. So not really, again, even a front runner in most of those spots. So yeah, definitely at 18-1. I'm staying away from Kyle Kirkwood.
Yeah, I just don't have a ton of want to get in on him. And now he is, let's see, because was he with Voigt last year? No, he was with Andretti already. So he already had switched last year.
Yeah,
He was with Voigt the year before. That's right.
Yep.
So, yeah, again, just not as excited as I am for this next guy.
This next guy is going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait on that one. I'm going to skip over to the last
Okay.
last Indy racer that we're going to talk about, because I think that's where I draw the line. Like Colton Herta is the last guy on this that I would even.
Oh, I've got a little sleeper a little farther down, but let's start with Herta and go from there.
Okay, I'll give you Herta, and then we'll talk about the next guy afterwards, and then we'll kind of toss it to you if you've got anybody else on there. But Colton Herta coming in right now at 20-1. Look, Colton Herta is a feel-good guy, right? He finished 10th in the standings, but he only had one podium all season long. And I mean, as somebody that you always want to do well, he finished 7th at Texas Motor Speedway, which was, a fantastic finish for him. He finished 9th, but he started 21st in the Indy 500. So it was a hell of a showing for him there. A great job to get himself to 9th after 20th, but a 19th place finish at Iowa 1 after a 6th place start. And then Colton Herta had another a day that he started 5th and then finished 7th in that second Iowa race. And then to finish off the season in the Worldwide Technology for the last one, he started 2nd but finished 6th. So going in the wrong direction in a lot of these ovals. So I'm not feeling it, even at 20-1. Is he going to be good? Is he going to be fast? Is he going to be a top 10 car? Probably. Yeah. Is he going to win? Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, really, you made all the points that I would have made. I just not a guy that I'm looking to get invested in at this time, at least at this number. Oh, man, Herta's like, I think the expectations are so high. He just feels disappointing at times because there's so much expected and been so much hype around him, and it doesn't always come through. If he starts putting it together, maybe it'll be worth looking at a little bit more going into the race, but not for where he's at with this number, I don't think.
And what's crazy is, so last January, Herta was at 8-1, and then in May later on ended up being 20-1. So I mean, we're looking at now what you were getting for him on race day. So I mean, listen, if you really think that he's probably going to be good in the Indy 500, if you are a Colton Herta believer, I would say 20-1 now is great. Give it another 6 months. You'll probably end up getting this at 6 months, you'd be past the race. 4 months, you're going to get this at an even better price.
There you go.
So, all right. The next guy we'll talk about.
Hold on. We're gonna get to my. I got one more pick down here.
You got one more?
I got one more sleeper for you. It's Antonio Ferrucci, 25-1. This is the guy I have circled, Rod. This is the guy you're going to take all the bets on. We're going to ladder him all the way to the top. We're going to bet him top 10. We're going to bet him top 5. I don't remember what we get for Indy. Do we get podiums? Whatever. We're betting all of it. We're in big on Antonio Ferrucci. His last 3 starts in the Indy 500, 3rd, 10th, 6th. He's up front each and every year. Had a ticket on him last year. Ends up finishing in 3rd place right there at the end. If an incident happens with those two guys on that last final lap. Ferrucci, a guy who just consistently in this race, quietly, he's not dominating, leading a bunch of laps, putting himself in position at the end for a long shot. That's what you want. It's just like betting in NASCAR. Longer shots that consistently put themselves in position. He is my guy, Antonio Ferrucci. You can take this now. You can probably wait if you want to, because I don't know that his number is going to go down at all. But he's a guy that come Indy 500 week when we're giving out our picks and talking about him, I'm going to be talking about him a lot and taking just about every available bet on him.
Trying to see where Santino, he was at 50-1 last January. And
so they've learned a little.
Yeah, they've definitely learned a little on that one. And then 16-1 on race weekend.
Ooh.
So
yeah, so hey, maybe you grab him now at 25-1.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean you may not get better odds for him at 25-1. So I like that. Just a couple of names of note. Let's wrap this up with a couple of names of notes before we get to the last guy on the list. And that's Marco Andretti. He's at 50-1. Helio Castroneves is at 30-1. Those
Helio's
are
he's always worth throwing a bet on. I mean,
yeah,
dude's won it like 14 times. So
yeah, he's always one of those guys where if you're gonna, I guess the what is it, the coffee bet, if you're gonna take whatever you're gonna spend on on a coffee and put it on
Throw it
Helio.
on Helio. Yeah, do it.
So, all right. Last but certainly not least, Kyle Larson making his Indianapolis 500 debut, 20-1. Hendrick Motorsports full behind him on this endeavor,
and McLaren too. So it's a Hendrick Motorsports McLaren crossover car. So it's strong equipment. It's not just a random car in the field by any means.
Yeah, it's not like what Jimmy Johnson did and actually raced for a team. They're putting
Jimmy
together.
You had Ganassi. What do you want from him?
Yeah, Ganassi, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like they're just Kyle's going to jump into somebody else's car. Like, this is
right. This
made
is
for him.
Made, specifically for him. So the way to look at this, right? We've had guys do the double. Kyle's going to be running the double, so he's going to do the 500 in Indy. He's going to get on the helicopter, fly to Charlotte, do the 600 that night. In theory, if he runs all of the laps in both races, he'll be at 1,100 miles, maybe more because NASCAR has overtime. At the end of the day, we've seen Kurt Busch has been the most successful one to do it. I think it was 04 maybe that he ran it. It was a while back, but he finished 4th place in the Indy 500. So it is not it's not a crazy thought that one of these NASCAR guys, and to the level of Kyle Larson, who is, in my mind, next to Max Verstappen and maybe even ahead of Max Verstappen as the best race car driver in the world on the planet Earth right this moment. Kyle Larson, you put the guy in anything, he finds ways to win. Dirt racing, this, that, whatever he gets into, he's the only thing he's been bad at in his entire racing career is super speedways. This isn't a super speedway, so we don't have to worry about that. He just sucks at those. We'll talk about that when we get to Daytona. But everywhere else, the guy's been good. At 20-1, why not, Rod? We're the NASCAR guys, of course, right? This is the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, IndyCar edition. But you got to throw a little coin on him. And honestly, you probably need to take it now at 20-1 because the entire NASCAR community is going to get in on Kyle Larson because they want to root for the guy to win and do good, right? So this is your opportunity. We're telling you right now, 20-1. If you want to have some Kyle Larson, which as a NASCAR fan, you want to, get in on now because that number is going to come down because I wouldn't be shocked if he's the most bet on guy by the time we get to the Indy 500 just because going to be such a massive influx of, oh, yeah, we got to watch, just casual NASCAR fan or even diehard NASCAR fan that's casual Indy fan watches the Indy 500. When I was really only a NASCAR guy and I didn't pay too much attention to IndyCar, I always watched the Indy 500 because it's the Indy 500. It's the biggest racing race there is, right, as we talked about earlier. So, yeah, I think if you're going to get on Kyle Larson, get in now at 20-1 because that number is only going to go down. And I think that's a good number. If he's like 10-1, then it's like it's his first IndyCar race, right? He's never even raced in them. But being that he is probably the best driver on the entire planet right now, you can't put it past him that he could legitimately win this. Jimmy Johnson, I think we bet on him because his odds were long and we wanted to root for it, right? But you really have a shot to win the Indy 500? Probably not. Tail end of his career, right? Maybe if it was more in his prime. But Kyle Larson's dead center in the middle of his prime. He's winning every single night. He's probably winning something tonight somewhere that's not having a snow, whatever the fuck we're in. But it's Kyle Larson, 20-1. Now's your chance because I think that number will drop drastically as more and more NASCAR fans see it and start paying attention to it. But yeah, got to get in on him.
I'm convinced that dude can win a race in my Chevy Traverse. Like he could probably take my.
He might be the only one who can, compete with Max Verstappen at this point. Throw him in get him in F1 Vegas. Come on.
I would love to see a Cars 3 style race where it's like Kyle can take his NASCAR stock car out there and we could take it up against the F1 car with no DRS.
We got IROC's coming back. It's the International Race of Champions.
I'm just saying, give it to us.
Internationally both champions. Let's get it.
We're going to take it. As for Kyle Larson, you're right. This is going to be the name recognition of all NASCAR bettors, and they're going to hammer this number. So you're not going to find this at a higher. You're not going to get better odds on him than you are right now. So if you really want to hang on to a ticket for a few months and just put something on Kyle Larson, don't go crazy because obviously it is his first and temper expectations. But if you truly believe, like we believe, that he's going to put on at least a hell of a show out there and give everybody a run for their money and not embarrass himself, that's good enough to put himself in contention for the win.
Yeah,
quite honest.
He's by no means the favorite, and we're not, oh, Kyle Larson is going to come in and show these guys up. It's still their series, right? But, recently we've seen guys go into series that aren't theirs, have wins, Rod. So is he the SVG of the IndyCar? Maybe. Who knows?
I'll bet true, like, hardcore Indy fans are over here going, go ahead and crown Kyle Larson, crown him the best.
Oh yeah. If they're not NASCAR fans, yeah, they probably don't like it. But well.
I love it. They're like, well, go ahead and tell him he's going to win the whole championship.
Everybody thinks this guy's Jesus.
20-1. Everybody go bet Kyle Larson. All right, so we're all go ahead, bet Kyle Larson.
Honestly, I was surprised he was at 20-1, just because the popularity of how popular he's going to be and of how good of just a race car driver he is. I really thought the number would be smaller, so I think it is a good bet.
Yeah, I think so too. If nothing else, just for a good speculation. Because what the hell, man? If it hits, you're going to be happy as hell. So
exactly,
I'll take it. All right. I believe we have done plenty of damage to the Indianapolis 500 odds in January.
Remember before we started, Rod, and you said, well, we can probably just keep this one shorter. It doesn't need to be a long episode.
This is why I should never say that, ever.
Every time you say it, it goes over an hour. It's just, I mean, granted, we go over an hour almost every time anyways, but here we are again.
Part of my whole thing was I wanted to be like, okay, we probably should keep this show a lot shorter, but you guys keep sticking around. So that tells me that you guys want it this long. So I'm not going to try to shorten it for anybody.
I love it. Well, we haven't talked IndyCar in a while, and you get the Indy juices flowing again. It's a beautiful thing. We got championship odds are out. What else was out? Was it race wins? I think. Season race wins. So guess what? We got more installments of IndyCar futures coming up in the near future, because we'll be talking about those things for sure. And anything else they decide to give to us.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, we had several seconds of overtake that we kind of left on the table. So we're just, we'll keep them and save them for the next race is what we'll end up doing. So.
Love it.
All right, Cody, let's head out the door. I've got to go reward my daughter for making honor choir. So we're going to
congratulations to her.
Thank you.
Awesome. We'll enjoy you guys' dinner and have a great night. You, of course, can follow me over on the X at @Husker_Zeeb. Find all my stuff over there. Got a casino article out. Go check that out for sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Got an Underdog defensive higher lower picks article that'll be dropping tomorrow, I believe, for this weekend's divisional round. So check that out. F1 Gambling Podcast we did earlier this week. Check that out. Cheers to F1 Bet Tipster in the chat. And I think we'll probably be back tomorrow with one more.
We will indeed be back with one more episode. What that is, we'll figure that out tonight. It'll be a lot of fun to do it. So I'm on X at RJ Villagomez, link in the bio, everything I got going on. Keep a tab on that, because I dropped today that I was on the Sirius XM Fantasy channel with Howard Bender on Fantasy Alarm today for a little quick hit on the Niners. That was a lot of fun. I gave this show a little bit of love, gave the F1 Gambling Podcast a little bit of love. So, just keep an eye out for stuff like that on the channel as well. All right. We'll be back again. Oh, and by the way, listen, for those of you guys who are sticking with us and are watching on YouTube and commenting and having fun with us throughout the show, listen, never apologize for doing that. This is a show that we have sort of brought along from the traditional podcast space to YouTube, and we'll always encourage you to interact with us, because we always want to hear from you. This show's not ours, it's yours anyway. So whatever you guys want is what we give you. So, all right.
Absolutely.
We'll bring it back tomorrow with more. And until then, let's go racing and let it ride.